Good morning. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the 2x2 control box here. Right now we're looking at the breakout board for this system, and I wanted to talk about some changes that we are making to this so that in the future we don't run into problems. Let's just say that with Windows 10 being a constantly updated system, we've had to make some moderate changes, and this is the moderate change we have to make. So let's start off with the first aspect of the board we're going to need to recognize. What we have here is at the very top. So I'm just going to put it right there. At the very top, we have the axes, X, Y, Z, and A. Those are the four separate axes on these systems. The A over here, so the A and the Y right here, are running the gantry that is running the full gantry along the 2x2 table. That is the Y axis. So when you hit the up and down button, the Y and the A motors are being run. The A motor is a slave motor to the Y. Now, there have been some issues with this when running G-code. When jogging, table runs absolutely fine. However, because of the high draw and the difference in nature when running the slave drive during G-code, we have to make modifications. So what we are going to have to do in order to get the system to function the way we'd like it to is essentially we're going to be taking all of the inputs for the A-axis and redistributing them on the Y-axis port. So the A-axis and the Y-axis are going to share the same output information, and it's going to be split into two separate drivers, one wired reverse to the other. So we're going to take these three wires right here, remove these three, and we're going to go ahead and place them either, and there's two locations we could do this. We could either take those and place them in the same port as here, sharing the port information, or what would be much easier is to connect them to the driver so that they're both sharing the same driver information. So let's go ahead and pull that here, and we'll be back shortly. So I want to go ahead here and disconnect these wires here. Now I have my system unplugged and turned off. So we're just going to go ahead and loosen these three here. 1, 2, and lastly, number 3 over here. Boom. Look at that. It's nice when the team doesn't over tighten the pieces here. I like it. All right. So those are removed, and we're going to go and lift these off. Perfect. So we have all three inputs, black, yellow, and red, and we're going to go ahead and put them on a different part of the system. So I'm going to feed this backwards down through the cables, down to the drivers. I'll meet you there. All right. So now we have our drivers. Now if I were to take this wire here that we just fed through, this is my A-axis driver information here. This A-axis is on the right side of this control box. I would double check with your control box just to make sure that the configuration is the same. But in this particular control box here that we have set up, this is one of the first iterations of this control box here. Ours is on the right hand side. I believe, if I recall correctly, most of the control boxes show that the A-axis is on the left hand side, so on and so forth. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this here. So we have these connections here, black, red, and yellow, and this is going to be the simplest part of this setup here. So the A-axis, these are the input wires for the step direction, and we have them coming into the input side of the driver. So each of these drivers have two sides. These are the input sides. This is the output side. So all we're doing here is we're going to take these three cables here and put them on the input side of the Y-axis driver here. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace the Y-axis driver. So this one here is the Y-axis driver. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this off here. If you'll notice here, this too has the three different inputs, black, red, and yellow, and I have the jumper cable here. So all I have to do is really go over and take these three inputs, put them on black, red, and yellow on these ports. So black, yellow, and red, each color to the same color because we are using the same directions. However, what we're going to do on the back end for the output side is going to be different on the A. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, take a moment to pull these and input these cables in here, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, so what I've done here is I've connected the cables to this, black to black, yellow to yellow, and red to red. And those will go ahead and head over to, let's go ahead and pan over there just a hair. Those will go over to the right hand side there. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in. Beautiful. I love it. All right, so there's one last thing we have to do. Because everything is receiving the same step and direction, we're going to find the problem where the system is causing both motors to turn the same way. And because they turn the same way, they're also going to go and, they're going to cause the gantry to bind. So we need to change that up. And what we're going to do is take the output side here and do a small change. And this, also a rather simple switch. So if you notice here, it goes black, green, red, yellow on this piece. All we have to do is reverse the pin order on here to yellow, red, green, black, and this motor, the Y-axis motor, will turn in reverse of the A-axis motor will turn in reverse of the Y-axis motor, and that will be it. So let's go ahead and do that here. I'll pause the video and make this change. All right, now as you see, I've reversed the pin out to yellow, red, green, black. So the motors are now going to run in reverse. Plug that back in, and that's all it takes. Once this is done, so once we've swapped the input information so that we're getting the same input information on both drivers, and once we've ensured that the driver is also reverse wired in order to reverse the direction of the motor, we should be able to start running our table on a Windows 10 system effectively, because it no longer needs the slave axis drive information directly from the computer. So, that being said, if you're running anything that's a 32-bit Windows system, and this is the last thing we have to check on this, is we need to check on the Windows 7 64-bit, which seems to show some promise, but we will check through these and get back. But for right now, with Windows 10 being the primary operating system that most people have on their computers nowadays, we're going to need to do this switch here to make sure that everything works correctly. If you got a computer directly from us, 9 times out of 10, it's using a Windows XP 32-bit system, which is running perfectly on the dual drive system using the A-axis information. So keep that in mind. If you're running one of our systems that we sent out to you with a computer, you won't have to make this change. However, if you have recently received the table, this is the change you're going to need to do, unless otherwise stated by one of our staff. So we will go from there, and I'll talk to you soon.